Which point of Gyan inspired you when you first took the Raj Yoga course?
So when I first heard about this meditation course, one thing that inspired me was that they told me I could have my own relationship with God. And my background was I was a Catholic, and you either had to go to church or know the priest very well. And although they taught you about God, we were more or less left on our own to have a relationship. So more, if you were good, God would love you, but if you were bad, God wouldn't. So when I came to this meditation centre with the Brahma Kumaris, they taught us that with our thoughts, we can make a connection with God, and that God wasn't human, God was light. And that was an entirely new concept, and I liked it a lot. And that's what inspired me to keep coming, that if I made my thoughts very positive and chose to have better thoughts, then I could make a connection with God, with this point of light, actually. And I think the best part of knowing this was that I was also light. And we're always taught to believe that we're this physical body and that at the end we just get buried in the ground. But the Brahma Kumaris taught me that, no, you're more than just this body. You're the thinking being, you're light, and you can have a connection with the supreme light. And that's what really inspired me to keep coming, because I wanted to have that relationship. And the best part of it was I didn't have to go anywhere really. It was better at the centre for sure, but sometimes when I was home I could also do that. That inspired me.
What made you to continue the Brahmin life?
Okay, so what's made me continue my Brahmin life, and just as a matter of interest, it's been 41 years now. So I came when I was 27, and I was looking for something. And when I did the course and they told us that if we followed this lifestyle for 8 months, we could go to our headquarters in Madhavan and meet all the senior teachers and also meet Baba. So of course I was inspired to do that, but after going there and having the meeting and meeting Baba and being in that atmosphere and that environment, when I came back, it was like I came back to an empty place. There was nothing there. So that's kept me in my spiritual life for this long time. And what I've tried to do is introduce others to it so that they can have the happiness that I'm experiencing, because can't find this happiness anywhere else. Can't find this family anywhere else. Can't see people smiling like this anywhere else.
Share your experiences with Janki Dadiji and Nirmala Didiji.
Okay, so at the beginning of my Brahmin life, after about 4 months, I was fortunate to be there when Daddy Janki toured Australia in 1985. Actually, it was 1983. And she came to the centre where I was. Actually, at that time I was in Brisbane in Australia. And we all came up and sat in front of her. And in those days, I sat on the floor. And I sat in front of her, and they told her my name was Maureen. And she looked at me and she said, Maureen. She said, there's 3 Maureens in Gyan. She said, I have 1 Maureen in Hong Kong. I have 1 Maureen in London. Now I have this Maureen in Australia. And she said to me, so who's number 1? And I went, we're all number 1. She said to me, good answer. And so that was my very first meeting. And then when we went to Madhavan, everything's new when you go to Madhavan, and so I didn't really know what to do. And we arrived at Merley time, so we went and had a bath, and it happened to be Borg morning. So at that time, Shanti Bhavan wasn't working, so the Merley was in the meditation hall in Pandit Bhavan. So one of the Australian sisters who was already there said, "Go up to the meditation hall and take nectar from Daddy." So I walked into the meditation hall, and to me it was really big because I came from a little centre that was like a little garage, and walked right down to the end of the meditation hall, and Daddy was sitting on the gutty, and she had the pot of nectar in her hand, and of course had to sit on the floor again, and she tilted my head and put it in my mouth, and then I put my head back, and she looked at me and she went, "First time?" And I said, "Yeah." "Yes." And she got her fingers and she just stroked my cheek and just said, "Welcome." And it was kind of like, I won't forget that touch. It was such a soft caress. Yeah. So that was Daddy Janky. And then when I came back from my first trip to Madhavan, Dr. Nirmala looked after Australia and New Zealand and Southeast Asia. Anyway, she happened to call me and say, would I like to move into a centre? So I went, oh, I hadn't really thought about that. And she said, well, you can go to two places. She said, you can go to Hobart, or you can go to another place not far from Melbourne called Geelong. And I remember thinking at the time, oh, I'm not going to Hobart, it snows there. And I went to Geelong. But anyway, I was only there for 6 months, and then she called me back and I went to live with her in Sydney. So I was there in Sydney with her for 4 years. And she told me I was coming there for some strict training. So I was just a little bit scared because sometimes Diddy can be a bit scary, or she could be, not anymore. But her strict training was, I really felt, when her and Charlie are together, they laugh a lot and they joke a lot. And I really felt like she taught me how to be really easy and light. And she didn't give a lot of verbal correction, but she would come into a room and just look around and walk out, and I would get the feeling, I think I'm doing something wrong. And so I would go and ask her, Diddy, is something wrong? And she would say to me, yeah, you should be doing this. I say, oh, okay. And so I would change and go back and do it the way that she wanted it to be done. But it was almost like she knew that if she told us off, we might react when we're a bit sensitive. But if we asked, she was happy to give us a correction. So I quite liked that about her. But she was really fun to be around, and her discipline was very, very inspiring. Like, she was always up in the morning. You know, she was always first there from early. She beat most of the BKs there. She'd be sitting on the gutty before anyone ever came to class. And I was on the music, so I used to make sure the music was playing because I knew she would be there at 5:30, which was the time we used to have Merley in those days. So I made sure the music was going when she got into the room, because otherwise afterwards she would say, oh, there was no lights on. Where were you? She would tease us like that. So she was a wonderful teacher to be around. And her love for Baba was so inspiring, because it wasn't like mushy, but it was like this firm faith that if something had to happen, it will happen. And she didn't have any doubts. And yesterday I heard the same thing about Rosie. They never doubted Baba. They always said, you know, if it's going to happen, Baba will make it happen. And that's very inspiring. And it was good to be with Diddy, because we used to drive her to all the service places. And I would hear how different she would be, because at that time there was a lot of centres in Sydney where I was staying, at different places she would teach different things. But sometimes she would just be very, very firm. And I'll just give you one point that was very interesting, was that she was telling us about souls who have been with Baba for 25, 30 years, and then one day they just left. And I remember sitting to Didi and I said to Didi, how could they just leave? And she just looked at me and she gave me this really powerful drishti. She just said, just one weakness. And it really stayed inside, just one weakness, and you would give up your whole effort-making life. And even these souls have been with Saka Baba, and still that weakness took them away. And how powerful Maya is. And so it was actually always in the back of my mind, don't let these weaknesses take you away. Find a solution. And that's what I found very inspiring about Dr. Nirmala.
What do you follow to create powerful vibration at your place of service?
At the moment, I'm staying in the Perth Centre, which is in the west of Australia, which is like a 5-hour flight from the east coast. So we're nowhere close to Sydney, Melbourne or Brisbane. So we don't have that interaction of family much. So we're on the west coast and there's only one main centre. So to keep that centre powerful, 3 things I pay attention to. 1 is Amrit Vela. B, meditation every evening. And C, we offer Borg every day. And we keep that discipline just to keep the atmosphere in the centre. And it doesn't matter if people want to come for courses or classes, we never compromise the evening meditation time. They either come before it or they come after it, but we never have courses or classes during. And keeping that powerful atmosphere has really been very helpful. And I've been there for a while now and the centre is now growing. But, it just means that if I pay attention to myself and the others that live with me pay attention to their selves, then the atmosphere stays strong. And one other thing I pay main attention to is we never eat and drink in our meditation rooms. So our Baba's room and our Murli room, there's no food or drink in those rooms. So to keep that atmosphere, keep it powerful.
Do you have any specific experience during yoga?
Okay, so meditation I really love. And when I first started to learn how to meditate, I used to create commentaries in my mind, and I would talk a meditation commentary to myself to take me up to Baba and to be in Baba's arms. So those commentaries actually helped to change my thinking a lot. And they also helped when I was sustaining others. And I found that now, occasionally I might have to use just a sit down. I have to remind myself, okay, Maureen, you're a soul now. Put the body aside, put all the duty aside. Just be light. And it's time to go to your home of light and be with the light. And sometimes I just start with those simple things and then stay there and really practice focusing and concentrating. And sometimes thoughts want to come and go and I just say, no, I just want to be light and be with the light. You go away, I'll deal with you later. And that's really helped with my meditation experience. And sometimes I felt like I've been taken very far away. And I felt like I'm a searchlight, just looking for Baba's children, wherever they are. And at other times, it's just this deep love. And at other times, it's just silence. So, and it's not always But when I focus and concentrate, then I can have some very deep experiences.
As the time is nearing, what would you like to say to the Brahmin family?
So I feel as a Brahmin family, we need to align our thinking because it's our responsibility to uplift the world. And if we're not focusing on making that effort as a family, how's the world going to find Baba? So my focus and concentration, and I try and inspire everyone around me, is let's elevate our thinking. Let's not get caught up in all the trivial things. Let's have this love for each other because we have to show the world that we come from a place of love and that God is the ocean of love. And if we aren't loving what's around us, then how are we going to inspire the world? And that's what I feel was the effort for the Brahmin family.
Rapid fire questions. Janki Dadiji.
Light,
Didi Nirmala.
power.
Which speciality of yours do you think inspired Baba to choose you as his special child?
I think it's because I like new things and I like challenges.
Which relationship with Baba you love most?
Friend,
Which dham of Pandav Bhavan do you like the most among the Char Dhams?
I was hut.
What comes to your mind when you hear the word Madhuban?
All the smiling faces.